The scene starts with a man in handcuffs, his face swollen from being beaten up. He's trying to grab something from his pocket. No, it's not a gun, nor a picture of his ex, it's a can of tuna. He opens it with all the calm in the world, smoking a cigarette, and, as if the situation wasn't surreal enough, he pulls a kitten out of his coat and places it on the table. Across from him, a man and a woman are interrogating him, probably wondering where the manual for dealing with eccentric suspects went. The truth is, this man isn't exactly what he seems. Hutch Manel might look like a regular family man, living a mundane life with 2 kids and a successful wife, but he's clearly tired of the routine. At the Manel household, things aren't going so well. Blake, the eldest son, barely looks at his father, and Hutch is starting to feel like his life is falling apart. His relationship with his wife, Becca, has grown so cold that there's a pillow between them in bed. Then, on some random night, Hutch hears a noise coming from outside. Someone's breaking into his house. He goes downstairs and, of course, comes face to face with the intruders. One of them, a woman with a gun, demands money. Hutch is about to do something heroic with a golf club but backs off at the last second. His son even tries to play the brave one and jumps on the intruder, but Dad just watches. The result? A black eye for his son and a ton of disappointment for the family. At this point, Hutch feels like the John Wick of suburbia, but without the dog or the fighting skills, yet. The next day, his routine returns to normal, except he's beating himself up inside. The neighbor brags about how much he would have beaten up the intruders, and his brother-in-law even gives Hutch a gun, worried about his sister's safety. But Hutch? He puts the gun in the fridge like it's a frozen treat he's never going to touch. But something inside him begins to change when he finds out the thieves took something really important, his daughter's kitty bracelet. For him, that's the last straw. He goes into investigation mode, grabs the gun, visits his dad, and borrows an old FBI badge, because every retired dad has one of those stashed away. He starts tracking the thieves. In a scene straight out of an 80s cop movie, Hutch goes to a tattoo parlor and flashes the badge. When the tattoo artists realize who he really is, suddenly everyone gets very helpful. After following the clues to the thieves' apartment, Hutch has a moment of self-reflection. After all, it's not their fault they're young, desperate, and have a sick baby. He leaves frustrated, but the story's about to take a twist. Now, in what's possibly the most unusual scene in the life of a metal factory accountant, Hutch ends up on a bus, confronted by 5 thugs. What does he do? He shuts the bus doors, takes the bullets out of his gun, and finally decides to show who he really is. He gets hit and hits back with such intensity that it feels like he's been transported to an alternate set of Die Hard. In the end, he apologizes to the bus driver, covered in blood, as if he'd just spilled a cup of coffee on the floor. When he gets home, his wife looks at him in the dark, and, for the first time in years, the two seem to reconnect. Who would have thought some beatings and bloodshed could help with a love life? Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in Russia, Yulian Kuznetsov, the villain who seems straight out of a James Bond movie, is busy singing and dancing at a club. His mafia buddies aren't all that impressed with the performance, but that's no problem for Yulian. He handles the situation the most efficient way he knows, by eliminating someone. Problem solved, confidence restored. And that's when Hutch and Yulian's stories start to collide. Did you know that the lead actor, Bob Odenkirk, spent 2 years training in martial arts for the role? Maybe he was preparing in case some annoying fan crossed his path. And in this movie, for sure, I wouldn't let my son take a punch without at least trying to fight back. I definitely appreciate my pillow in bed more. Who knows, maybe it's there for some secret marital security reason. Speaking of which, Hutch's decision to stash a gun in the fridge was interesting. Was he trying to keep the gun as cold as his love life before all the chaos started? In the next scene, we see Yulian, the short-fused Russian mob boss, next to his brother in a coma. The diagnosis? A brain more crushed than a soda can. Yulian, being a bit of a Sherlock Holmes himself, quickly deduces that the attack has something to do with the Obshak, his $1 million operation. To top it off, another guy in the room, all beaten up, hands Yulian a subway ticket he found during the bus brawl, a classic Trojan horse move. Meanwhile, across town, Hutch, who seems to have returned to being that typical dad from a margarine commercial, decides to praise his son for trying to save the house from the thieves. But make no mistake, our hero is far from being on vacation. The phone rings, and his brother warns him. Hutch beat up Julian's brother, the Russian boss who seems to have walked right out of a John Wick villain casting call. And with that, chaos is guaranteed. Hutch, with a frightening calm, warns the family, everyone to the basement, now. What happens next? A festival of chaos and mayhem. Julian sends his loyal right-hand man, Pavel, along with a horde of henchmen to take out Hutch. Little do they know, Hutch is the kind of guy who turns a break-in into a deadly dance routine. After tasers, shootouts, and car crashes worthy of applause, Hutch takes out the bad guys with ironic ease and still has time to cover his daughter Sammy's eyes so she won't see the massacre in their living room. Of course, he sends his wife and kids away, like in that moment when you think, be happy, I'll be back, maybe. Right after, Hutch, in true villain monologue fashion, confesses to the bodies that he used to be a government auditor, the kind who handled the untouchables, until he decided to leave it all for a quiet life. But now, the past has come knocking, and without a doorbell. While Julian picks up the pieces, Hutch is ready for war. He closes his factory and fills the table with ammunition because that's how you deal with millionaire Russians. In a sequence that would make any action fan stand up and cheer, he storms the Obshak's warehouse, setting fire to Julian's artwork and his mountain of cash. When Hutch finally faces Julian at the club, he does what any sensible person would do, plants a bomb under the table and asks the boss what he prefers, revenge or disappearing with the last shred of his dignity. Julian, of course, chooses the first option because, well, villains never learn. What follows is an epic battle at Hutch's factory, complete with explosions, traps, and even Hutch charging at Julian with a claymore mine strapped to bulletproof glass. The result? Boom, goodbye Julian. Now, about that moment in the story where Hutch decides to set his own house on fire, well, I definitely would not do that. At most, I'd call a specialized cleaning service or, I don't know, make a quick as a sale. What I would do, though, is take my annoying neighbor's car without a second thought. One thing I found really interesting was how the movie plays with the idea of the ordinary man who, deep down, is a lethal killer. So, do you think Hutch went too far, or did he do what he had to do to protect his family? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and now I've got 2 fantastic videos for you to watch. See you there.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect.